What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we got the 8.1 Assassination Guide, and let's just start things off real quick. I'm going to tell you what we're going to go over this video. First off, we're going to start off with what's changed, how your spec is different from the previous patch. Then we're going to go into talents and honor talents. We're going to go into gearing, stat priority, and Azerite traits. There's some new gear, and we'll get into that as well. Rotation, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Now it is PvP, but I'll try to give you guys some little rotational tips, hopefully with real examples as well if I have any clips sitting around. Alright, so we're on the PTR talking about what's changed, and to start things off, we no longer have our Deadly Brew, which is that healing reduction on our deadly poison. Essentially, when we were using deadly poison, it would also apply wound poison. It was a minor wound poison. It did about 15% healing reduction. If you had Master Poisoner, it was 18%. We no longer have that, unfortunately, so we will have to play wound poison in order to gain that Mortal Strike effect, which, in my opinion, is going to be the go-to. We'll talk about this in more detail in a second. Also, in addition to this change, they have changed Blindside, which is now going to be usable under 35% HP. In my opinion, still too weak to use. Elaborate Planning and Master Poisoner are going to be the go-tos for that. The only other change on top of this stuff is that we're gaining a new Azerite trait, which when we apply, I can just equip one real quick here. When we press our Vendetta, it's going to apply a dot to the target, and it's also going to give us some energy over 20 seconds. In my opinion, this is going to be a pretty good trait for bursting, but we'll have to see how it plays out here. Alright, so for talents, this is going to be my standard talent setup. Now I am a human, so I am using Relentless, as the cooldown from the human racial is rather long, and you can't really abuse it well with Trinket. Now there is some games I do swap off of Relentless to play the regular Trinket, but for the most part as a human I am playing that Relentless. And for most other races, you are probably going to want to use Gladiator's Medallion, as it allows you to get out of a lot of situations where you would die. And having control over that is a lot better than Adaptation, where it just procs it automatically. And if you're not human and you have Relentless, you really have no way out, and people can really abuse you and kill you rather easily. Also, if you're an Orc, Relentless no longer stacks with Orc, which is a good little side note. Anyway, this is the basic talent setup that I'll be playing. This is good if you are going to be playing as a burst comp like Rogue Mage, and if you're playing something that's more spread pressure, you might opt out of Elaborate Planning for Master Poisoner, as what Master Poisoner does is it increases that Mortal Strike effect from your wound poison from 25% to 30%, if I can get it to proc here, 30%, which is pretty good. Next row talents, we're going to be going for Subterfuge. It is the most viable in this row because every time we re-stealth, it is going to allow us to get out potentially more Garrotes on the target, which are going to be stronger. Now you can see, because I was attacking the PvP target dummy, it is weaker. As you see, it's 80% in PvE. It's only a 40% increase in PvP, but it still gives you more of an incentive to try and re-stealth. And it also makes it more forgiving if you get AoE'd out. Subterfuge will proc, and you will have 3 seconds to get out those silences on the target. This allows you to, cheap shot and garrote 2 different targets on an opener. Allows you to set up more stuff for your team, allowing your team to make plays, and it's just overall great PvP utility. The other two, Night Stalker, it's not even really better damage this expansion because you're not going to vanish and like Envenom from stealth or something like that. It's just silly. It's not really good. Envenom's not doing enough damage for a kind of a gimmick play like that to be worth it. And Master Poisoner is only active for 3 seconds when you come out of stealth, and Assassination Rogues can't really abuse that too well. Next row talent, Mark for Death over Vigor, still always the best. Mark for Death giving you more combo points than Vigor's additional energy would allow you to generate over a 30-second period. And it also allows you additional utility of being able to just go for that kidney shot right away, which is really, really good and what we're after. Elusiveness is still the most consistent option here, especially as you get more experience and you start to learn when people want to go on you. It allows you to pre-feint stuns on you and totally negate kill attempts in some situations where you would otherwise die. Cheat Death, really, really good though against burst comps. I personally hate Cheat Death because it is kind of gimmicky. Sometimes it doesn't work well enough. The maximum, if it put you to 10% HP when you died, and the damage reduction was like 95%, this would be definitely viable against some burst scenarios, but overall, elusiveness is just better. You have access to it every 15 seconds. You can't go wrong. Internal Bleeding is the only real viable option here in this next row, as it does give you a dot on your kidney shot, and the main reason why it's so good, it does do a lot of damage, that is true, but it gives you Venomous Wounds procs when you use this on the target, and so it's going to give you back additional energy, which is really cool. Does decent damage, and you can see like my energy regen is coming back pretty quick because of how quickly that dot ticks. On top of that, um, Prey on the Weak has been nerfed. It says 10% here, but when you're in PvP, it is only 5%. So a 5% damage increase for your team really isn't relevant over Internal Bleeding. Internal Bleeding gives you rather good pressure increase, and I highly recommend it. For the level 90 row here, we got Toxic Blade. My opinion, once again, Toxic Blade the only viable option here. It works with your Envenom, works with your poisons from your honor talents, and it's just a good overall damage increase. The initial damage from the ability also hits quite hard compared to a lot of other things we have. And another good thing to note too is I believe when we're in PvP content, yeah, it is only 20% increase, but it's still very, very good. And then for the final row, I think the only option here is Poison Bomb, and that's because Hidden Blades takes too much of a ramp up time. Now I think that you can kind of abuse some little gimmicky traits and stuff like that to make this hit rather decently. It's not worth it. If there's crowd control targets standing around your target when you wanted to press this, you're gonna break all the CC. People are gonna get heals, stuff like that. They're gonna survive. Poison Bomb though, just it's just a passive. Just take it and forget about it. It is fun. I love the animation of it. That's pretty much that. And then for honor talents, we are gonna be taking Smoke Bomb, Creeping Venom, and System Shock. Now there is some scenarios when you can probably drop either Smoke Bomb for Shiv, but the only reason you would do this is if you were trying to run Deadly Poison and you decided, hey, I only need to Shiv on my Wound Poison and get that Mortal Strike effect temporarily for whatever reason. But I think that the best overall, most like just pick this spec and forget about it is going to be Smoke Bomb and having both of your Creeping Venom and System Shocks. If you're playing double DPS in twos, maybe you're playing Rogue Mage, um, you might opt to drop one of your poison talents for maneuverability. The only thing is, though, a lot of rogues, myself included, you like to sprint when the gate opens to get in there quick and set up your opener really fast. It's really hard to do that when you take maneuverability because you don't want to waste that talent. But anyway, that's pretty well gonna do it for the talent section of this video. Let's hop straight into gearing and Azerite traits and the stat priority. All right, moving into the stat priority for PvP here, we're going to want to be going Haste as Assassination and then Mastery. If you can get yourself to around 20% Haste and over 30% Mastery, you're usually looking pretty good. The reason we don't go Haste Crit like I'm pretty sure PvE suggests is because Crit is only worth half as much in PvP, because when you critical strike in PvP, it's only going to crit for half damage as opposed to double. And so basically, you're going to haste, mastery. Anyway, moving into the Azerite traits, I'm going to kind of do this as a priority. The absolute best trait that we can get right now is, let's see, if we go to the current gear that I have, Battlefield Precision is the best. If you can triple stack this, when this procs, it goes crazy. This thing does so much damage. Your teammates can proc stacks off this. It's going to make the dot appear for you and count towards your damage. Whatever, it just does a lot of additional damage. It's really good. Also, in addition to this, you're going to want Shrouded Suffocation. Having one of these Shrouded Suffocations is really good. If you come out of stealth here, you can grow out one target, you can cheap shot the other. Boom, you got 5 call points. Maybe your teammate sheeps or gets some crowd control off the cheap shot, and then you go on the target with the kidney shot. Haven't even used Mark for Death yet, and you can use that Mark for Death for an Envenom or a Rupture to contribute to your damage on top of that. Pretty much having Shroud Suffocation just makes that opener a lot faster and more consistent, and it's going to make you feel like you get more rewarded when you get those re-stealths off. So, number 1, you want Battlefield Precision. Number 2, you want at least one Shrouded Suffocation. And then number 3, if you can't obtain either of those, going for something like Scent of Blood. Right here, there it is, right there. Scent of Blood. Basically, this is probably the runner-up in my opinion to having Battlefield Precision. Now, Battlefield Precision, in my opinion, also miles better. But if you can't get it, Scent of Blood's pretty good, especially if you're playing comp like RPS, where you're able to multi-dot targets. You're going to get more instances of the agility from this if we very quickly put it on. We got a Rupture up on one target, maybe a Rupture on a second target. You're going to get 2 stacks of that, 236 extra agility all the time. It's pretty solid, pretty easy to use trait. If you have access to Nothing Personal, though, Nothing Personal is also really good. And if you can stack multiple of this, it is going to make your Vendetta a lot more powerful. So between the 4 traits that I'm going to be going for, it's going to be Battlefield Precision, Nothing Personal, Scent of Blood, and Shroud Suffocation. Anyway, let's talk about the new gear real quick that's going to come out with the next PvP season, which will be out, I believe, early or mid-January. We're going to get new gear, and it's going to have 5 traits on it. And by 5 traits, I mean it's going to have an extra row. It's going to look like this. If you guys want to check this out for yourselves, you can head over to the PTR. That's where I'm on right now. And you can see I've tried to pick out a gear set for people who only like to PvP. So I have the Sinister Gladiators leather hood, the Sinister Gladiators leather pauldrons, and the Sinister Gladiators leather chest guard. That's the short form of it. If we hop into it real quick though, we got Nothing Personal and Battlefield Precision and Overwhelming Power on the same piece. I wish I could get 3 pieces of gear like this. This would be absolutely insane. Um, but on this piece, this is the best I was able to do as far as PvP gear goes. Picked up a double dose, whatever. Battlefield Precision, and then just Impassive Visage. If you can get Azerite Fortification on your piece of gear, it's actually pretty good, because then when people go on you with stuns, it's going to replenish your health a little bit. It's going to make you a little bit harder to kill. But overall, not the most important. You want to focus on DPS traits, because as a rogue, when you get in those situations, traits really aren't going to save you from this kind of thing. And then on the third piece of gear, we have another Nothing Personal and a Shroud Suffocation. So this patch is really going to add another layer to gear, and it's going to make it, in my opinion, more fun. But it might be a lot more frustrating for some of you newer players. So for PvP pieces, like I said, just leather hood, leather pauldrons, and leather chest guard. Really pay attention to that text, because they're going to all have different traits. There's about 4 or so different gladiator pieces you can obtain. For those of you that like to do mythic and raiding and obtain extra gear that way, I found it better to use this headpiece right here, and also obtain the new version of the Gorak Tools Mantle, which is going to have these traits on it as well. You're going to be able to pick up a Shroud Suffocation, a second Nothing Personal, and a second Overwhelming Power. And then in addition to that, if you can get a Venture Co., I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, vest, you can also get a third Nothing Personal. You pick up a Scent of Blood and a third Overwhelming Power. So when you proc triple Overwhelming Power in this gear, it's going to shoot your haste up over 50%. Your dots are going to be going off like crazy. You're going to do a lot of damage. You're going to have a lot of energy, and it's pretty good. The downside to that PvE gear, though, is you are only going to have one battlefield focus, and stacking that is absolutely insane. Anyway, guys, we're going to talk about some quick rotational tips before wrapping up this video. Alright, we're back on live here to show you guys some rotational stuff. The reason we're on live is because my rogue is set up and ready to go. Everything I can do in this patch, I will be able to do in 8.1 rotationally. So we're going to show you guys that. Basically, thinking about PvP, a lot of people ask, what's the rotation? And to be honest, there's no perfect rotation, because it's going to change on the situation. In general, some things to keep in mind though. You want to have your bleeds up on the target when you're able to kidney shot. If you can apply your bleeds before you do that, that's great. But if applying your bleeds before that is going to make you have to risk getting stunned yourself or fall into an enemy play, it's not going to be worth it. And a lot of the time you'll find yourself just going with Mark Kidney, setting up your bleeds after, dropping a Toxic Blade, and just going that way and relying on your teammates' damage to really help that pressure go out. But in an optimal situation, if you can already have your bleeds up here, let's see here. So we'll get some bleeds up on the target. We got both up. We'll build another 5 points. This is the most optimal situation you could hope for. Have both bleeds up on the target, and you got 5 points ready to go for a kidney, and then boom, you're just able to swap to the target. You pop Vendetta, you got up your Toxic Blade, you go for 5 points again, you drop that double Envenom with Envenom, Mark for Death Envenom, just like that. Basically, it's not always going to work like that. Just in general, remember, when you're going on the target, you want to be able to stun the target so that the target can't get away from you, and you're going to want to have all your bleeds up. And pretty much, let's hop into some PvP examples here, and we'll see how that lines up. Alrighty, so for this first example here, real quick, basically, I call out to my team that I want to go on the Mistweaver. Mistweaver has no trinket at this point. As you can see, he has no bleeds on him at all. Basically, my Paladin's going to, when Stun DR falls off, cover the Shaman with a Hodge so he can't help and can't stop the mage's damage. I get off a Garrote here from my Vanish, and very quickly go for a kidney shot. The reason I don't wait is because I don't want to get leg sweeped. I pop Vendetta, and then I go for a Toxic Blade, and the reason I do this and kind of waste the call point is because I just want this to buff my Envenom's damage. As you'll see in this example, I know that the Mistweaver is going to die regardless of if he has Rupture on him or not. I don't need that, especially during internal bleeding here. Sometimes it's okay to not have Rupture. You got to be careful on that though, because you really do want it up on the target at all times, but for quick swaps, sometimes you got to sacrifice it. I'm able to get a Mark for Death and Venom off of that, and the combination of the damage of our team totally knocks the monk out, and he goes down. Often, when you have all of a target's cooldowns, you're able to score a kill on certain classes with a good coordinated burst from your team, and you don't even necessarily need to have all of your bleeds up, but just in general, if you can have all of your bleeds up on the target, you want to, because if that Mistweaver were to live, my energy would start running out if I don't have my bleeds up on the target. Anyway, we'll hop into one final example here. Alright, for a second example here, here's a little bit of basically what happened is in the previous go, we got Rogue's Trinket, and he put me on, they went for their go, and I had to survive as well. Now you see here that they went first, and I'm falling off stun DR before this Rogue, and this is a situation where I'm not fully set up, but pretty much the next person to get a kidney shot on the target at this point in the game is going to go down. So you see I'm just hiding here, and I'm looking to get my kidney shot out quicker. I call it to my team that I'm in trouble and they want to go on me, and I absolutely need to get the kidney shot off first or we're going to lose the game. So he just falls off DR there, you can see above my target, and I very quickly get the kidney shot up. I have a Garrote up on the target and just kidney shot. My Rupture is just falling, so it's not really fully optimal, but I had to go. I get off a Mutilate and my Toxic Blade to set up a big Envenom here. I get the Envenom off, and we get the kill. So there's an example of how you can't really always go with a perfectly optimal rotation, but sometimes it's the way she goes. Anyway, one more thing I guess before we cut out this video. I got one macro kind of like I'll include it in the comments below. Show tooltip Vendetta. Basically, sorry, this Vendetta macro, the reason why I use this is because you can actually use Vendetta in stealth, but I still have my on-use trinket. So if I come out of stealth and I press it again, it'll pop my on-use trinket. The reason why that's good is because there may be the odd situation where you're able to Vendetta a target when you're still in stealth. As a general rule of thumb, you don't generally do this because target could pop something preemptively or get away. But it is a nice little thing to have. There's no reason to not have this on here, because if you pop your on-use trinket in stealth, it is going to bring you out of stealth, which is something you generally don't want. So I will include that in the macros below in the comments. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. I really hope you all enjoyed this video, and please be sure to give it a thumbs up. It helps me out so much. Consider subscribing for more content, guys. Also, one last thing too, please consider heading over to my Twitch at www.twitch.tv/evasionx. I have started streaming a little bit. I don't really have a current schedule right now, but if you ever want to poke in, drop a question you may have, hang out. I'd love to see you guys all around, and we'll see you guys all next time. Peace.